Welcome to the fifth edition of the talks of the Cavalry Roundtable. I welcome General Anil Cheth, who has been the Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff and the Army Commander, Central Command. The first part of his talk on the wars of the 21st century and the future of the tank was received very well, having been seen by a very large number of serving officers besides veterans across the globe. In addition to the views on the X platform, the views on the YouTube alone have touched 80,000. The talk will be followed by a question and answer session. General Anil Cheth.
Thank you very much, sir. Firstly, tell me, am I audible and can be heard?
Yes.
Right. Just an addendum suggestion that in case there is for whatever be the reason, if there is anything which interrupts the talk on account of light or other failures, we would be able to come back through a different route. It may mean a disruption of about 1 to 2 minutes. Now, having covered the admin aspects, thank you very much, Sir Kanbedi, for asking me to cover this talk. I intend to do this in 3 parts today. As suggested by you, the first is going to be a recap of part 1, very briefly. Thereafter, I intend to cover the happenings of last 45 days post the talk. And in the third part, we will take into account as to what is happening the world over with regards to tank, its evolution, technologies, and its impact on the likely requirements which will have an impact on the future ready combat vehicle, which is the future tank of Indian Army. Now, let me say this, that while framing the first part of the talk, I had taken into account as to where we were and where we were to go. And where we were to go was articulated or was inferred from a vision document of 2047, which basically deals with Sudhar and Surakshit Bharat in support of Viksit Bharat campaign, which the present Prime Minister has launched. This document, which is relevant to the Indian Armed Forces, visualizes the Indian military to be an effective tool in an all-domain technology part, as an all-domain technology part force. It envisaged integration of the emerging technologies which are today evolving, which we call as the next-gen technologies, emerging out of the various RMAs, and indicated by artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, space, data-driven decision-making, which were to go into the armed forces operational framework. The overall central theme was the integrated and networked approach. And this is the part of the integrated and networked approach. Firstly, why was it chosen? Because the spectrum of threats has expanded. And also the fact that the decisive military action may not require direct contact on the battlefield. So in this backdrop of vision, as to where did the future of war on the Indian subcontinent and beyond, and the role of tank light was my first line of inquiry, which I tried to cover in the first talk. Now, that's a talk which is, that dialogue is approximately hour and 10 minutes long. For the purposes of recap, I have tried to sum up, or rather, try to put this across in few words, which I will be covering in next few minutes. The first thing is that the wars of tomorrow are unlikely to be anything that we have seen in the past. And therefore, combat would need reimagining. Wars are likely to be fought before and beyond the battlefields. So it goes beyond the combat phase or the battle phase, and it can lie before and beyond. The receding of open confrontation, especially when people are writing, when the geopolitics is being played around with the sovereign checkbooks, the tools of gray zones are preferable to the leaders for very obvious reasons. Decisive military action and its end state needs to be introspected or needs to be arrived at. In the context of the future, the notion of victory is more likely to be linked for dealing with the will of the opponents and the means of retaining the status quo, or at best a more favorable bargaining position, because wars through physical force are receding and decisive military activity or decisive military victory may not be possible to be achieved. However, for winning, territory will remain pivotal. Human activity which supports it, eternal, and the breaking of the will or social cohesion of the opposing force, country, tribe, whatever may be the case, would remain central. The other point that we had highlighted was, if data is the new oil, then the synthesized and distilled intelligence is going to be the source of power, the center of gravity that we talk of. And for that to happen, the data would need to be harnessed and processed. To do that in realistic time frame, the electronical algorithms, which far exceed that of the human mind, would be needed for accelerated decision making and shortening of the kill chain. And this is where the battle of algorithms comes in, because the opposing side would also be using the algorithms to reduce the kill chain. Kinetic and non-kinetic means, their synergy, convergence, and interdependence will make for the consolidated part to exceed the sum of its individual parts. For dealing with the multi-domains of the battle space, the battle space has built many domains, and this consolidated part to produce the desired effect would be much more powerful, purposeful, and the consolidated effect is going to be much more than the arithmetical sum. The indirect means of observation and geospatial data has expanded the reach of shooters by enablement of what can be seen by human eyes. And therefore, the merging of direct and indirect fires, and hence fronts or zones of battlefield, has occurred. Because now not only you can see, you could always influence. Or what has happened is that you are no more limited to what you can see on account of the eye in the sky or artificial means or synthetic means to increase the range of what you can see. The final determinant in all this is the optimized path. and I'm using the word power here and not firepower, which is dictated by the ability to see for producing effects of long-range vectors. I mentioned that I'm using the term power, and now I qualify by saying power which is available includes both hard as well as soft kill. Hard kill destroys the peripheral aspects. Soft kill destroys the brain. And if you do that and combine it, then the outcomes that you will be able to achieve could be to deter, disrupt, degrade, and destroy. The next point is interesting because it is my belief that the initial phase of warfare, which involves the flexible deterrent operations, is going to be led by beyond visual line of sight operations, which is going to be undertaken as part of shaping operations. This could include fires, special forces, and now you're talking about Bhairav battalions supporting the para SF, drones, autonomous, biomechanical means and machines. And this will be happening in the merged combat and communication zone, which will be followed by combat and consolidated operations. But remember, the first set of attack, physical attack, will come from the aerial, space, and in terms of soft, from SEMA domain, which is cyber electromagnetic activity. To influence war, infowar would be the key for cognitive domain and its narrative and interplay. This will happen on account of beyond visual line of sight operations, to deter, on account of having a ready force in the background, nuclear saber rattling. These are all going to be a significant accompaniment to deal with enemies' sensual perception and for claiming of victory. And lastly, the significance of SEMA as a combined medium in the digitized and electronic architecture for supporting the two RMAs would play a very significant part. Now, there were a lot of other things which we had covered with regards to future of war, but these are some of the salient points which I thought I needed to highlight. As far as the review of the industrial age tank is concerned, we covered the fact that besides the shock and awe which a tank produced, it was also with regards to its flight against vector-controlled trajectory correctable cheat precision being unleashed by the drones. The count today in the Russian-Ukraine war as far as the tank is concerned is over 10,000 of various kinds on both sides. The first set of attack which will come, which I mentioned earlier, would be from aerial domain. Hence, protection priority would have to be done against the loitering and floating ammunition. And this loitering and floating ammunition is very different to the single shot ammunition that we've been using in the form of kinetic energy or the missiles. Because the floating ammunition has the ability to remain up in air, wait for an ambush position, and subsequently attack. So when it does that, it enables the flexibility of choosing the time, direction, and place of attack. And along with that, I also mentioned the bottom is becoming increasingly vulnerable. I talked about the robotic dogs carrying mines on top and attacking at the right moment when people are wanting to enter critical areas. And this has resulted in the technology shifting to take the human inside the hull in the form of pods. The APSs have to become more converged and they need to aid the indirect protection against incurring the penalty of direct protection, which was being done hitherto. And the another important aspect of protection that I highlighted was a protection is a must for maneuver. You can undertake fire, but for movement to take place and movement to take place against enemy, you require protection. So maneuver would only come if there is a protection. Now, how heavy could be this protection? Or is the answer, or does the answer lie in going for a medium tank? Is something which will have to be seen and analyzed, which will be covering today. Because the indirect could be assisted by the phased array devices or the ESA radars, all through the indirect smart protection. The discussion centered more, or the dialogue centered more, with regards to what a tank can do. And this was with regards to direct and indirect fire. Firstly, there is never a question that somebody is recommending that tanks will not undertake direct fires. For being a combat arm and leading against enemy is the primary role of tank. So as far as the direct combat is concerned, it's not an issue. But what is becoming an issue is that the direct fire is getting impacted greatly in our subcontinent by increased urbanization along the frontiers, besides the crop and peak cover. If you're going to be limited by the human eye, and that human eye's ability is going to reduce down to 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,400 or 800 meters, then where are you going to fire? So therefore, the ability to see is limited by the gunner sight. And we also need to remember that a gunner sight is a fire control device. It is not a surveillance device. We tend to assume that we are carrying out surveillance from a fire control device, but where is the extraction layer of taking out the AI intelligence from the fire control device? Or are we going to mount 2 or 3 devices? The next issue was that the firepower of tank guns is restricted by the formations which are adopted by tank entities and is masked by the lead elements. Because for the command and control elements. So you may have, let's say, in a squadron 2 up or in a 2 squadron as part of a combat group, 4 troops up or something like that. So it is limited by what lies ahead and what is its impact with regards to the formula. And if this force is going to be preceded by another set of autonomous vehicles, then what are you going to be doing with regards to restricted ranges of direct engagements? And therefore, the question that I left was, should firepower remain as it is existing, in spite of the fact that we have increased and enhanced our ability to see and hear even beyond the horizon through the indirect means, whether it is space, whether it is drones, whether it is any other device, IoT device, which is available to us. And if you're going to say that in spite of our ability, enhanced ability to see, if you're not going to fire and if you don't have the ability to engage, then do you want to get left out? As it existed, in spite of our enhanced ability, then why get left out? Why not generate a capability for indirect fire to a threat in conjunction with direct fire, especially when wars are short and of a high intensity? Why is there a self-imposed restraint of industrial age? Is it on account of technology? Is it doctrinal? Is it the baggage of history? What is it? One of the arguments that was made as part of a comment was, no, our job is direct fire. Another was ammunition. Gone are the days when we were dealing with 3-round or 4-round techniques. Today, with a fire control device, you are having, my generation talked of 80% first round probability of it. Today, we are talking about 90 to 95 percent of first round hit. So what is this issue of ammunition resupply? Let's assume that you still have 80% which is given in spite of ek gola ek dushman, or 50% probability of first round hit. Still it would mean that you will be able to increase the power which is wielded by the combat group if all 45 tanks fire vis-a-vis the 12 tanks which are firing and masking the fire of the elements which are lying behind. Do you want it or don't you want it? Do you want it in spite of being in the formation that you are choosing to advance? Is something which needed to be pondered about. The second aspect was that when we talk about the area of influence and the area of interest of a combat group, that combat group, our instructors used to tell us 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, 10 by 8, somebody said 8 by 8 reduces the night. But look at the number of gaps that exist in that. Is it effective domination by a combat group? So therefore, effective domination in the area of interest or the area of influence of combat group can definitely be much more if the capability to fire is provided. And it is possible to be done because it is not only a matter of tangent elevation. Quadrant elevation can also be given in today's context of the geotagging of the data, which is available on the synthetic screens on account of the devices that are available through the GIS, which so many of you know more than me. And lastly, the firepower is no more going to be constrained by the firepower done by the physical means. It needs to go beyond through SEMA or the direct energy tools. And all this can be harnessed today through the AI integration with early warm. Now, all this was fine. The question was, what is the device on a tank which creates synthesis of data? How do you create an int mosaic? And how do you do it from a fire control system or a TI device or a day device, optical device, which is on a fire control system? How do you extract the AI layer? Do you require somebody else to do it? And if you require somebody else to do it, in addition to the three-man crew that we talk of, where is the fourth man going to come from? Is the fourth man physically going to come? Are we going to be asking the MOD to bring this crew back to forward? Or there are technology tools in the form of portable data centers, which are there to do this particular task and produce benefit out of the digitization that is going to be needed through the tools of connectivity. It is definitely possible to be done, and we will see this in today's dialogue that we are having. And lastly, with regards to mobility, we talked of that is it going to be a conventional diesel? Is it going to be, are we going through the route of electrical? Or is there a case for looking at hybrid engines today? With this as the backdrop, let me just come to the highlights of the last 45 days. And this is very interesting because we saw the major thrust coming into the defense and electronics sector, both in terms of resources, in terms of policies, and also post-Sindoor, now that everybody is having an opinion and expressing it. Firstly, I want to thank Colonel Bedi. The part one generated enough response. The second bullet deals with a very interesting statement that POTUS, or the US president, made at Sharm el-Sheikh. His comment on the Gaza story was, he declared the war over, and commenting on use of force this is what he said. All that can be won by force of arms has been won. He said that there is so much more which force of arms cannot win. The second and third statement comes from a gentleman whom I will talk later, who said the conflict zone has increased. Combat and communication zones have merged. This is Pakistan Field Marshal. While addressing students or while addressing cadets in their academy. In relation to Afghanistan, he used the term prepare for war and chaos instead of normally what people say, war and peace. And gentlemen, each of the statement has truly, there is something else that is being conveyed. We need to hear it. We need to sense it. We need to feel it. And also the T100, which I said I was fortunate enough to be at a place to have a little view of that, not directly. More details have started to emerge. And this is very important, and this will be discussed in detail because it is going to be right opposite us. It integrates AI, drone, and network warfare and provides for true beyond visual range capabilities. Serious in his book, very relevant and researched, which probably is being released today, tomorrow, or maybe it has been released yesterday. In outlining the preparation for the India's military, again with regards to 2047, has gone on to speak in great detail and said that the battlefield is as much cognitive and digital as it is physical. Jan Sandhu taught me this when I was a student. He talked about the 3 RMAs. The first RMA, which he said gave us the mobility and ability to maneuver, was on account of mechanization and aerial mobility. And he said the second RMA, which is dealing with network centricity, which is basically coming out of the ICT and the computational power that people like Colonel Bedi provide. But he said that network-centric warfare can give you an information advantage, can give you a decision advantage. But the data-centric warfare, which includes the convergence of data-centric warfare, celerity, and the information warfare, is what is going to give you the decision advantage. Now, if this is what the leaders of today who are shaping and preparing the military are thinking, we need to take note of it in our analysis as to what the operating parameters of the tank should be. And for those uninitiated, celerity is driven by hypersonic, stealth, lethal, and autonomous system, besides long-range precision guidance, which falls under the category of new-age weapons. And he also said that the Indian armed forces, for dealing with the continuum of a crisis, will need better info superiority and improved understanding and effective decision-making through faster assessment of outcomes, which I referred to with regards to the battle of algorithms. And he concludes in his book by saying that all this and what 150 pages demands thought transformation and organizational reorientation. The organizational reorientation has started to take shape. Right, good, bad, ugly is a different matter. But it has already started to take shape in the form of Rudra, which is an all-arms brigade. And what is the sense that we're getting out of Rudra outside? And in fact, Manoj, who's one of the admin, wrote an excellent article in explaining the concept of Rudra, which he said was a digitally connected, multi-domain combat, autonomous fighting organism, which deals with an ability through permanently interlinking of its constituents to sense, decide, and strike autonomously. And at the core is the constant integration. This is what he had to say for Rudra to operate in a network-centric warfare domain. Chief today, 1st November, talks of warfare, and this is maybe he said this 2-3 days back, but it has been reported in the press today, that the warfare is increasingly becoming non-kinetic and non-contact. And therefore, the response demands military strength, intellectual prowess, and moral preparedness. This is what our chief is saying. Increasingly non-kinetic and non-contact. Let's hear some of the very important senior generals of the Indian Army, and this is all happening in the last 45 days. This is what they have to say. I'm not naming the arm and service, but you will be able to understand the thrust and who's saying. This is with regards to a particular combat arm, which says that effort is to create rapid response multi-domain combat units. The combination of sensors and shooters in this combat arm is as important as it is for mech forces. And it goes on to say that the boots on ground will remain decisive, which is true, even in the age of autonomous warfare. He's absolutely correct. And he's pointing to the vision where he wants to take his arm to. Let's talk about another arm. The Army General states that contact on the battlefield is no longer a prerequisite for decisive action. It is a new normal. And it is a new normal because you can win without incurring casualties. It is the remote power on which nations rely at the present time of modern conflicts. And they by themselves are capable to degrade or disable opposing forces while keeping their troops safe. And India too must adopt to this transformation. And has gone on to justify with whatever happened in Option 2. It's perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong. It is in sync with the realities of today. Let's talk about now the cavalry generals. I came across this of a very senior cavalry general. I don't want to name, but if in the question answer this comes up, I definitely will name it, because he has given this view in writing, so it's attributable to him. Unlike those who carry on talking like me, probably I too will write after this. Firstly, he goes on to explain as to why we need to move towards the battle space from battlefield. And he talks of that in the battle space, non-kinetic confrontations and non-contact warfare, along with the contact warfare and traditional armored conflicts in hybrid avatar will happen under the informational gaze. And on the future of tank, he goes to say that the time has come to go beyond the combined arms to a multi-domain integrated force. Go beyond the combined arms to a multi-domain integrated force, combining multiple sensors and shooters, thus executing destruction in depth. That's something which we are trying to talk about in terms of indirect firing capability. This is something which happened. This was released on 19th of October. And I think it just about sums up. It again comes out of a very known personality, very senior person. He says the industrial age tank has to face a harsh reality. And what is that reality? that traditional concept of warfighting, which are defined by mass and classical maneuvers, are outdated. In this digital and multi-domain era, the very idea of battlefield geometry, once defined by terrain, projection areas, and maneuver corridors, is being reshaped with cyber attacks, autonomous systems, and precision munitions redefining the table. And he goes on to say further, the armored corps stands at a critical inflection point as antiquated doctrines, traditional platforms, legacy structures, and linear combat models face obsolescence in a multi-domain digital battle space. And he implores all of us to reimagine combat through the lens of invisible geometry, precision, disruption, and mission continuity under digital seas. The same cavalry general goes on to further say that mission for the armor for transforming must move from a digital battle space maneuver into cognitive dominance and digital shape. And he wants the core to evolve from an enabler of deep thrust to a command and control powerhouse in a maneuver warfare, which has both a physical and cognitive effect. As the lead element of rhythm, and therefore the destruction must transit. Now, before I go to the overall worldview of what tanks of tomorrow are going to be, what does it tell us? It tells us that our expectation from a tank, I'm just summarizing so far, that you need to have the ability for fire, be the lead element of the force. You need to have the ability to maneuver, and for maneuver, exploit the technologies which are available through indirect means, through eye in the sky, and also undertake the command and control capabilities in maneuver warfare of the battle space, expanding from the battlefields. Just let's see as to what exactly is happening the world over. T-14, Russia. Unmanned turret, but at the moment seems to be struggling with advanced sensor fusion systems. Strangely, T-14 still has not shown appearance in the Russian-Ukraine war. The MGC, I would call it, which is a French-German initiative, is going towards a 140mm cannon. Panther, the German tank, which is going to be coming out somewhere around 2027, is having a 130mm cannon, which is offering 50% more range than other Rheinmetall guns for the main battle tank. It also has the capability to launch drones for ISAR, and this capability would sniff out the anti-tank missiles which are in the area of influence or the area that has been assigned to the combat group, virtually increasing the area of influence and area of domination of the combat. It is also having a top attack protection. I'll come to the smart tanks Zorav a little later. Let me go to Caramel, Israelis. Where is Merkava 5? It is moving towards a lighter armor, not light armor, lighter armor. I'm not too sure with regards to what is the weight, but it is definitely not going to be of the likes of Merkava or the other British tanks. Abram, heavy tank, which is going to be coming out shortly, has now gone on to a reduced weight chassis. It has come into the medium, slightly medium plus category. It has gone for a hybrid electric propulsion when they had all the means to go for an electric propulsion. Why? We need to look at, examine. Unmanned turret, fine. and advanced situational awareness capability, featured with next generation technologies, which also enable AI to whisper suggestions to the crew based on the AI inputs that it has. Let's see as to how eventually all this shapes up. But it is basically sparking imagination and signaling towards the future, which is the heading of the slide. Leopard 288. It is built for both high intensity conflict and network centric warfare and ensures advanced command and control with drone support and the Leclerc. But let's revert to India's smart tank Zoravar. Zoravar which has got a John Cockerell turret, but it has an AI enabled fire control system, which from the literature that I have, and I'm not privy to exactly what the capabilities are, but as I understand, it has the ability to, AI is doing the job, which is exceedingly good, to identify and lock onto the targets. And the counter drone system, anti drone defense system, is automatically engaging the drones. I do not have the exact inputs. The information which has been released on the Nag 2, which could be mounted on this, does deal with increased ranges of 4 to 10 kilometers. Now you have a capability that we are asking for 4 to 10 kilometers, but you don't have the ability to see. Maybe Zoravar will have the capability to see in the hills at places. So therefore, the shooting and sensors and shooters need to be harmonized together so that the effect can be achieved optimally. I think this is now these 2-3 are very important slides, and which are dealing with T100, which is going to be our opposite us. The T100 is not solely defined by its armor or firepower. It is defined more by its digital brain, AI, and ability to take electromagnetic warfare. The AI is becoming a combat assistant and decision support, what I was talking to with regards to the portable data centers, which can process the battlefield inputs at machine speeds. And the AI integration is also coming up in the EW warfare, where the tanks will be able to detect, jam, and spoof enemy sensors, blinding adversaries while preserving your own data links. Then, of course, maybe he's looking for a common system with different structures, different versions, but it basically flows out of this EW ecosystem. What does it tell us? It suggests to us, or the sense that I get, that the shift is operationalizing the BVR combat doctrine at the ground force level. And it is indicating as to how armored formations will detect, engage, and destroy targets long before that direct visual contact. The line of sight dependencies, which I talked of, which limits survival in high threat environment, is proposed to be dealt, or which is also augmented by the saturated precision guided munitions and Reiki drones, would be dealt with if you have the ability to see at longer ranges and deal with those threats at longer ranges. The tank, because of the AI enablement and processing on the edge, has the ability to become a network node. And what it does through that is that it transforms the battlefield into a distributed combat network. It minimizes the tank-on-tank duels, replaces brute force clashes with algorithm-driven engagements, fought through digital coordination, standoff munition, and electromagnetic dominance. This is a picture of a portable data center, approximately 30 kgs in weight, 32 cores, has the ability to do 5G communication, and it is mounted on tanks. I saw it 5 months back in India, and I recommended to some other people, examine this. What it would do is that it will make the real-time decision-making process locally instead of referring back to a higher headquarters. It will ensure that through the connectivity, it will carry out the analysis of the ISR. It's very easy to say that I'm going to fly a drone. It's very easy to say that I'm going to fly a swarm of drones. We don't even understand the impact in terms of bandwidth and in terms of data and who's carrying out the analysis of that information, how is it being converted into a command control facility, how we are going to do a battlefield management. Because we look at it and think that somebody will do it. There is a huge amount of computational power. It is all in 4K resolution, which a customer is asking, and I deal with it on a daily basis. It also supports the mesh networking. It improves the resilience against jamming or communications because of the cryptography which is attached. Now, am I saying something new? Am I saying something which is not there? Most of the armies that you see underneath has started to look into that route because they realize that human intelligence or human algorithms will not be able to support the information and data which is going to be coming up, and especially if we are going towards a DCW. This is actually a deployment of a portable data center. At the moment, you're seeing it in a standalone mode, but otherwise it is mounted. The only thing which jets out is a antenna. And this antenna is not of the size that you see on the right top corner. It is a much smaller antenna. So if you have this, what does it do? It enables you to operate in the MDO. And what is MDO? MDO is the multi-domain operations, which are network, C4ISR, AI system targeting. So these three aspects come out of the items which are written in black. Because this is the job of the data center. And the 3 points which are in blue are the ones which are going to be the effects that you need to create, whether with the help of a hard kill or the soft kill tools. So therefore, the need for decentralized computing power right at the edge of the battlefield is going to be important, and we need to analyze that can we do it, or do we need to keep it back and push the information downwards? We look at drone as a single drone, 2 drones. This is the mother drone. What I'm trying to say by talking like this is because we are dealing with it. It is a 23 kgs, which has got 12 bombs, which have the capability to take out targets in the air and also targets on the ground. Precision. Firstly, there is a photogrammetry, which gives you the data, and then it enables automatic launch onto those data points. But there are certain challenges. The challenges are principally with regards to thermal and the energy management, especially in the compact armored environments. So it has been hardened, but more needs to be done. Cybersecurity, the swap aspects, and interoperability with regards to the other systems, legacy systems and futuristic systems would need to be kept in mind to ensure that we move towards the field of what we are talking about. This is a very interesting quote that I thought needs to be given. I have tweaked it based on what I thought was relevant. If the mechanical power of the industrial age replaced human performance, then surely computing power unleashed by technological era will replace our experience of mental and thinking power. And role of human will diminish. It will not go away. It will diminish in just the same way as tank replaced cavalry during the Industrial Revolution. The next revolution, where we are going to go, is going to be decided by how we think about it. So therefore, what is the future of tank? And this future of tank is relevant, is important, and we are coming almost to the end and in time as to what should it be and how should we move towards the FRCP. These are some of the broad recommendations. I think people who are in service, who are dealing with it, can probably dwell more. So therefore, the first part is that the predicting what armored vehicle will look like is as difficult as predicting what they're going to face. But one thing is certain in my mind, that the days of simply adding more armor or smart indirect protection will hold the key. Sorting the threat out of the sky before it lands on the tank needs to be the mantra, and it needs to be a combined threat which is attacking the hull as well as the turret. Leading and fighting the battle in contact with the enemy will always be the primary purpose, as it has been hitherto, of protected mobile firepower or tank. This has been since evolution and it will continue to be. So those naysayers who feel that the thrust was moving towards becoming an RT, it is wrong. Nobody is saying that you will not do what you are required to do to lead and conduct physical maneuvers. But what we are asking is to deal with the battle space. The optimization of power by networking within the entity to enable every system to function 24/7 and not get masked by what lies in front is the key. We need to improve the power of a combat group. It cannot be limited by our ability to see, and it cannot be limited by what lies ahead in the scenario and in the vision for 2047, which is going to involve autonomous vehicle also operating ahead of us. And actually not even operating ahead, pulling us. They are the ones which are going to generate the recce pull. So are we going to say that the lead elements will also not? Simply no platform can remain idle if it has an ability to shoot. For maneuver to occur in the age of transparency, influencing of the intermediate zone while dealing with the reduced opposition in the contact is needed to enable building superiority in time and space. If you're able to deal with the intermediate zone, you've got the temporal advantage. You have reduced the opposition, and consequently, you have built the troop density at the contact pattern. So therefore, the simultaneity that we thought of, which is possible, needs to be achieved, and the combat groups should have the ability to do so. And we should not start looking at, do we have the ammunition or we don't have the ammunition? That an exercise should go, because the probability of hit is increased. Ability to fire is increased 300%. Technologically, it can be achieved by indirect firing capability as well as by vector-controlled trajectory, correctable autonomous cheap precision. Both the options are available as to how we want to do. Next is the platform as a carrier and availability of numbers in a headquarters through tanks or support vehicles. Something like BMPM, Terminator, enables the armor to be the most worthy candidate for becoming the command and control and networking hub in an NCW NDO environment. And unless we seek the place that rightfully belongs to us, as we talked about when we're talking about the maneuvers in the third dimension, we will be left out and we will be doing disservice, because the platform as a carrier provides that capability. Numbers of our headquarters, whatever be it, squadron headquarters, combat group, combat command headquarters, whatever we are talking about, all arms brigade, enables us to give us that capability. Edge computing provided by portable data centers mounted on platform needs to be customized for the needs of C4 or 5 ISR, which is required for the autonomous operations and for new organizations which are being considered for combat. I'm talking about Rudras, and others. SEMA and the EW, electronic warfare tools for tactical cyber operations, needs to be incorporated for battle space domination. It is already being done in certain cases, in some form or the other. The technology which is associated with the second and third armies, whether it is in terms of AI, nanotechnologies, quantum, crypto, can provide a very different approach to MBT design using advanced materials, automotive components, weapon system mix, protection system, and data and communication technologies for our FRCB to become smart, agile platform, possessing the power for meeting the vision of 2047 and beyond. However, there will always be an issue of affordability, robustness, and energy that will come with increased complexities. I'm very certain that tomorrow's tank will be a very different beast altogether. Some of these are science fictions, but some of these are also true depiction of what is happening in the field of armored warfare. This brings me to the end of my talk, and we are dot on, and I'm happy to take on any questions, anything else anybody wants to ask.
Thank you, Anil. The house is now open for questions and suggestions, if any.
May I, Colonel Bedi?
Please do go ahead, sir. Everyone is welcome to pose any suggestions.
Okay. Anil, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
PGS Sandhu.
Sir.
Okay. Are you able to place me?
Sir, आप क्या बात कर?
Okay. Thank you for a wonderful talk. I enjoyed it. May I request you to do a little kite flying, and I'll ask you a hypothetical question. Let's say if Operation Sindoor had not terminated as it did, and it spiraled into a longer and all-out war, for whatever reason, can you try and visualize and tell us, share with us, how do you think it would have panned out? Would it have carried on like a Russian-Ukraine war the way it has been? Or could it have been a different outcome? And can you just share your thoughts on this academic and hypothetical scenario?
So firstly, my regards to you, sir. I'm hearing you after a long time.
Yes.
Secondly, sir, I will briefly say 2-3 aspects. Firstly, with regards to the subject, and then I'll come to answer your question. As far as the tank design is concerned, sir, tank and the designing is a factor of the vision that we hold. And it needs to factor in the future of war. And future of war will have its own set of imperatives, and that should go into the designing of what we expect from this beast. Now, having said that, question that you asked me specifically, Op Sindoor. So, Op Sindoor, even if it had resulted in a war, and it's very much possible because phase 2 of Op Sindoor is on. One thing I'm very certain, sir, that it would have become difficult for forces to reach their launch pads unless there was total domination of the airspace. So that is the first part. Battle would have continued if, in spite of the transparency, which was not as available during these 71 wars, the war lasted for a number of days. Kargil lasted for a number of days with minimal transparency. this war with transparency and the information advantage would have been in a much compressed form. And therefore, the number of days might have been few. Now, therefore, do you want to sit out, the formations need to sit out the battle, or they want to participate? The relevance is only in participating. And if the relevance is in participation, then it needs to factor in the impact of transparency. It needs to understand the impact of the information advantage and see that it can be of use and of influence to the wars of tomorrow or Sindhu too. So therefore, I would say so that to give answer to the question that you asked me, war in a transparent age in the context of nuclearized nations would have been short, much lesser duration, exploited by the transparency and the information advantage by whichever side had it. And the outcomes would have been that attrition on either side. But Sindhu definitely, sir, having had the benefit of commanding a corps, two corps. I remember 2011 when we did Vijay Bhav, when we did a war game before that. It was all about that attack on India or any part of India is attack on India. And India should not differentiate between LC and IB. There is no such thing. The status quo has been breached. Why is this self-imposed restrictions that have been laid? Why can't the power which is available be used? For whatever be the reason, and I have a good reason to understand. I know why exactly people did not allow such kind of a thought process to prosper. But it was fought for. And if our attitudes would have been different right from the day one, then maybe such situations would not have taken place. I do not know, sir, whether I've been able to answer you.
Yes, Anil, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Indeed.
If there are no more questions, then thank you, Anil. Great having you on this talk, and we look forward to many more such talks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and regards to all.